Hi everyone, this is Kelly, and I have got to clear off my whole space so that I can actually work. And I have some of this left over from class this Saturday. I'm doing developing our reading skills, but part of the framework was, that there are different voices from the different systems that can, we can kind of utilize that to think about our own reading skills. Regardless, doesn't matter. My point is that, so we were talking a lot about and thinking about, and again, there's all kinds of divination outside of cartomancy, but I was using that as a framework with sort of casting as pre-cartomancy, certainly pre-Western cartomancy, right? So talking about casting, playing cards, symbol-based decks like Lenormand and Kipper, tarot, kind of modern, those larger size oracle, and then what I would call like a hybrid oracle, which generally is sort of has a system to it in some way, and or is a blending of different things. So that's kind of what we were talking about. So I had a couple of different example sets and because I was going to talk about it, and we ran out of time. So I thought, well, I've got these decks out. I'm going to just go ahead and make a video on it, which I already did part of, and the volume was not working. So we're doing it again, but a little bit backwards. So these are actually, so I first was going to do my most used, right? So I am a professional reader, and so a lot of times my decks that are my most used are generally decks that I really like, but they are functional in the kinds of readings that I do. And so those can be different than my pure favorite decks, right? And then I have precluded, or I should say I have excluded my own personal deck creations. I will talk about how they actually fit all of these, which is interesting, right? Because it shows how much I do love all of cartomancy. But we'll do that last. So I do, in all fairness, I create decks for myself, right? I make decks because I want this particular deck. It's my perfect iteration of something. So there's no question that some of my decks would show up in favorites as well as most used, but I'm excluding them from those two categories, and we'll just talk about them at the end. Okay, so that was kind of the caveat there. So these are my favorites, and look, I had no problem. I could bam, 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 do my most used. When it came to my favorites, we've talked about this on this channel for many years. Favorites for me is a weird thing, and it's hard to nail down because for me, it's generally favorite because XYZ. Like, this might be my favorite when I want to get comfort, or this might be my favorite when I want to do this. I have a video called Pieces of My Soul, trying to say these are different parts of myself, and these decks kind of hit those particular pieces. And that's really is how I feel about when you get into things like favorites, because it depends on the moment that you're being asked, which we're going to talk about, and it also just depends on the situation. For me, decks, especially tarot decks would be the hardest for me, because tarot is a system, right? It has got a major arcana, it has 4 minor arcana, it has a set of 1 through 10 numbers, it has a court card system. It is a system, and I love the system of tarot. The imagery, or what theme or what artist or what art is on the deck, is interesting, and I love that collectible aspect of it because of those differences. But I don't really read tarot any different if it's one thing or another, with some exceptions, which I'm going to talk about today, because it is kind of interesting that at least 2 of the decks that I'm going to talk about are because there is actually something that causes me to read it a little bit differently. But tarot in general, the system I love, the decks, I might put in one season love this particular deck, and in another season I might really love this deck, and for this situation the image seems to really kind of work very well with this kind of reading. So it's frosting, right? For me, the art then is kind of the frosting of it, and so that can just change on my personal preferences at the moment. So tarot is actually the hardest for me in this category, but let's talk about it. So in terms of favorite casting, I am going to say runes. I cast charms, which I absolutely love, but I will say that my charm set is very system, and it will show up in my most used, because charms are my most used in terms of, clients purchase charm readings more than they purchase any other casting thing. So it's definitely my most used, and I love charm casting. But my charm casting is very systemed, right? It's really more of a hybrid because it has a Lenormand set in it. It has a system of how energy moves within fork, knife, and spoon. It has the 4 keys, which are tied to the 4 directions. Like, there is a system now. It's just developed over time, but there's a system to my charm casting that makes it a lot more of a hybrid than anything, but it's still cast, so it is still part of a casting. Anyways, but for pure casting, I don't think that I can, for me personally, I would say runes for sure. Now, I use runes in other ways, and runes are not my most used for casting. I do use them a lot in pulling a rune, or pulling 3 runes for a message, or pulling 3 runes for a bind rune within a reading. That gets used quite a bit for me in readings. But in terms of casting, definitely not my most on the table, but my favorite. I just think there is so much power to runes. I think there is so much, these aren't just, Othala is not just a symbol that holds some keywords. Like, actually drawing and writing and manipulating a rune image, to me, is accessing that energy. So it's just, and again, there's other things that do that, like oghams and things like that, but for me, runes are where it's at, and so I would have to say that as a favorite. And currently my favorite, because I now use Anglo-Saxon runes only, I actually don't have a lot of Anglo-Saxon rune sets. This is on Canary Wood, which I am now obsessed with, so I am currently obsessed with this set, but I don't have that many, and I love all the ones I have. Playing cards would be really difficult because I have been collecting playing cards long before I ever started reading tarot. And so I have a lot of playing cards, and I love a lot of playing cards. And certainly my most used playing card deck could go in the category of favorites as well. But I tried to, which is the which we'll talk about it, but that's the Eye of the Ocean. Like, I love this deck, and it's definitely my most used currently, but we'll come back to that. I would have, if I was push come to shove, I landed with the Fauna. This is the Fauna playing card deck with the art by J.R. Carragher, C-A-R-R-A-G-E-R, or H-E-R, Carragher, I believe. It's kind of a funny script. But I don't know why I'm going over there. I don't know why I was going over there. That was weird. I love this. There's a veiled edition, and then there is a multicolor edition, which I also love and have. But, in terms of doing divination, like, you need, your 2 color tones there. So I just love this. I love the art. I love the pips. It's just beautiful. I love the back. The box is just beautiful. I don't know. I just love this deck. So I would, it's hard. It is a favorite. That's what I'm going to say. My sort of honorable mentions is definitely the Arcana tarot playing cards. This is by Dead on Paper. I believe you can still get these. I don't know about the fauna, to be honest. I also have the tarot deck, which is one of my most used tarot deck. It's the black version. But again, I like that it's very traditional pips. It has, you know, it's focused on the playing cards. It just gives you the nod of the tarot. So I guess you could, you know, make the argument that this is actually a hybrid. But this version of it only has the Queen, Jack, and King. So it just has that nod to the different suitings, and those are different suitings that have been used in playing cards. So I am going to call this a playing card deck, and I do absolutely love it. It's gorgeous, it's clean, it has one of my all-time favorite backings. So yeah, that one definitely had to go in as a honorable mention. And then this one is so different, right? This is really a bicycle playing card deck. Like, you don't get the standard playing cards. Easy for me to read with my glasses off. It's just purely a standard playing card deck. The only difference is that it has all these different backs, and I adore this. Like, in simple terms, right, this is really a cheap and simple playing card deck, but I absolutely love using this for divination. I don't know, I don't think I've ever played any games with it. I just use it for divination, but I love this for just, it brings me joy. It's just literally for no other reason but that it brings me joy. So those are my playing cards. Now, I don't know why this happened. I guess because I was thinking, you know, symbol decks like Lenormand, right? So symbol decks like Kipper, Lenormand, but I just ended up grabbing Lenormand decks, and it just I'm not gonna rethink it yet again. My favorite, other than my own, my favorite Lenormand deck. I'm actually for this one, because my other most used is going to be another version of this. But this is I don't know if you can see this very well, but this is a really well used deck. This was my second Lenormand deck that I ever got, and I loved this deck. I did not love the whip card, which was changed, so I didn't love the whip card, but I love this deck. I love the backing of this deck. I love the new backing, is one of my absolute favorite. But, you know, this is just, it just makes me happy. It's super clean, super easy to read. And so I'm calling that one of my favorites. But then I picked, well, this one's kind of a fortune-telling style because it's got the full. So this is a fortune-telling deck that may be Lenormand, so it's a Lenormand Plus. And it uses images from other fortune-telling style decks of the same, or a fortune-telling style deck of the same time. It has one of my absolute favorite backings. Absolute favorite. It's got the nice playing card insets. It's clean, it's simple. Like, if you bought only one playing, then it's got the extra cards, which obviously you can take out if you want to take out. But this is, I just love it. I think it is, like, if you're going to buy one Lenormand deck to play around with and see if you love it, I would say, and you just want a mass market deck, I would say get this one hands down. Because, again, you have the 36 cards. That was me. It's not the fault of the box. I just really poorly closed that. Number one, you get a great Lenormand deck. And number two, you've got, when you get comfortable with that, you can add in the extra ones. And they're really traditional to the time period. And so it's mass market. It's amazing art. And it's the plus. So big fan. Big fan of that one. So, and then the last one that I picked, again, I don't know why I'll have to do another one on just cartomancy style decks, but this is a Lenormand. This is the Anna K Lenormand. I adore this deck. I also use this deck a lot. I like the perspective changes that she does. You know, it's the perspective above the flying. Like if I see the coffin, like it's so close up to, and smelling the flowers, beautiful tree. I love her. I love this ring that's actually holding the sails together. I like that we're just seeing behind the main peoples. I like the weight, but you know, she also has the nod to the cross. I love, I don't, of course, not going to get the, I'm already, that coffin. I like that you're actually down into the dirt. I just like the perspective, and the art is amazing. I actually don't have the Anna K Tarot. I didn't really love the people in that one, but I adore the Anna K Lenormand. So yeah, we just got, and that's silly. I've got to pull out, I think I might even already have a Cartomancy deck, but there's my 3 favorite Lenormands. Minus my own, which truthfully mine is my favorite, but again, we're excluding that. This is very close second. Okay, tarot is, again, it's, as I said in the beginning, tarot for me is hard because I love the system of tarot, and so anything else that's on top of that is really just nuance to the situation. So currently, so that's kind of how I did it in my brain. Currently, my favorite tarot is the Witch Sisters Tarot. That's my card of the year. This does really well what feels like having an oracle of grandmothers and aunties and past life versions of self and ancestral energy. This just feels like it is to read it just as a tarot deck works amazing, but when you add the layer of the stories and what's going on in the cards, it makes it feel like you really do. So you could argue on on this good one, and there's a couple tarot decks like that. You could almost argue it's a hybrid oracle tarot, but it was created as a tarot deck, and these were created as representations of the tarot card. So it is a tarot deck, but it's so well done, and the information in the guidebook is so nuanced to this energy that it really is multifaceted. And so in this case, while any tarot deck is a tarot deck, you know, that I can use and work with no problem, I get something extra out of using this, and I go there. Like, for example, this, I was talking to a client with this card. While I can get just to the typical 8 of Waters, there is this extra layer of meaning with the Selkies being brought in that, especially in the case of this one reading I was doing, it was so relevant and beautifully powerful to the reading itself, that to come into this component of Selkie energy. So the card was readable as the 8 of Waters, but the nuance of the Selkies really did contribute to the reading. And so I did what I don't normally do, which is that the card itself also, you know, the art on it actually informed also the reading, even though I stuck with straight first and then added that second layer second. So I'm going to, again, this is just because this is current. So, and I don't feel like this is ever going to go anywhere. But at the moment, my current favorite tarot deck is the Witch Sisters Tarot. So that's definitely a current favorite. On the same vein, right, this is very similar. This is one of my all-time favorites. And truthfully, if I was keeping only one tarot deck that wasn't mine, it might be this one, because this for me inhabits the realm of story, right? If this inhabits the realm of the ancestors and the grandmothers, and my past life selves, right? This inhabits the land of story. So while again I can access the tarot no problem, it's almost like a pip deck for tarot for me. But at the same time, the images are so poignantly story-based and so into the forest. I mean, that is one of my all-time favorite strength cards. Whoops, whoops, whoops. that I can also go into the woods with this. And it has the meaning of the tarot, but I also then can wander off into the woods and tell a story with it. That makes it Tarot Plus. Again, not a hybrid. This would be, I would say almost you could argue this is a hybrid more, because these images were not created for this particular tarot card. So you could kind of say, I call foul, that's actually a hybrid. I would agree with you, but regardless, this is one of my all-time favorite tarot decks. And if I had Nellie's deck, I would be perfectly happy to take this, because then truthfully it would be like having an oracle and a tarot. But I love the John Bauer, and I think this might surprise some people, but this is the Lost Forest. It kind of surprised me that this came up so strongly for me, but this is the thing. This deck, like I said, feels like it inhabits. It feels like my ancestors, my past selves, grandmother energy inhabits the space, right? The John Bauer is the space of story, which for me is source energy. And the Lost Forest, for me, especially the first edition, and again, I love the second edition as well, but I love the first edition is my favorite. And what I love about this is this feels like it leaves so much space in the minors that I do feel like I've entered into the space of my inner world. So this inhabits the space and leaves open the space of my inner world and tapping into my personal energetic web for reading that I think is really powerful. So this is a strong contender. Again, I can make all kinds of cases for favorite tarot decks because of this, favorite tarot decks because of that. So this is not, I don't really believe I have a single favorite tarot deck. So other than my own, which we'll talk about that in a minute. But so these are the ones I'm putting up now. Again, if I do this in another 2 years, there's probably going to be other things showing up, and that's okay with the favorites for me. In terms of what I call like modern oracle decks, of these sort of larger size decks that I'm going to generally only pull 1 to 3 cards. I don't generally ever pull, 9 cards out of these larger oracle decks. So if I were going to, in that category, I have to put into the Lonely Woods. Like if I were to have to get, and I have a lot of oracle decks that I love, but if I just had to keep a heart favorite, I never would have guessed this purchasing this deck at all. This was to me like, it's probably really sweet. It's not just sweet, like it's just really powerful. It's very supportive, but it's not overly mushy. Like it acknowledges the shadow of where we are in our emotional landscape, but it also just feels really supportive as well. And I don't know, it's just, this is a powerful deck. I don't pull it a lot. Very rarely do I pull it for other people. But I pull this the most for my own self, and I do love this deck. It hits in the feels like no other. So I picked that one. Again, I have lots of favorite oracle decks for reasons, but just in general. And then I would say also the Halloween oracle, and I'd also have to say the Urban Crow oracle. Man, I'll be honest. I think I would actually put the Urban Crow over the Halloween Oracle. That's by MJ Cullinane. I use that a ton. But this is an interesting one because it hits all the kind of spots in terms of Halloween and monsters and things that I love, but it's also an amazing reader. Like, you don't have to read this just at Halloween time. There is something about the keywords or the titles and things. It reads really well. So it's a good reader, and it's a good all-around deck. I do really love this. I would say I might have to put the Urban Crow above this, and I didn't even pull that one out, but you can have that as a 4th extra. And then I have to say the Book of the Dead Oracle. This is by Scylla Conway, and again, she's made many decks, and her Shimmering Way Veil Tarot is one of my favorites. I love that. But in my opinion, this is like her greatest contribution to the world. And people would argue that, like Davis of Creation, amazing. So I'm not putting down her other decks. But the fact of the matter is there's not, this is irreplaceable. If you're someone who works with reincarnation, if you're someone who works in liminal spaces, if you're someone that works with grief and loss, if you're someone who works with ancestors, it's just for me kind of a no-brainer. It is not an easy deck in the sense of easy hitting energy. Like it can take you into, you know, the bloody rivers and things of that nature. It's not easy by any means, but it is so powerful, and I think key for me on this one is it's just irreplaceable. There's not another deck that I would say does this work as well or at all the way this does. So it's just, that's for me, like this, the River of Oil and Blood. Like that's not an easy card at all. Have I had that come up with ancestor work? Yes. Not easy energy. But amazing. So yeah, I can't, this is one of those, to me, if you are into ancestor, you do ancestor work, and you're okay with going into darker healing aspects of your ancestral energies, because if you're not, if you're just getting hugs from grandma, and there's nothing wrong with that, I do it myself, but if you're not just getting those sort of supportive energies, but actually getting to the nitty-gritty of some harder work, I would highly recommend this. But it can be confronting, and so I don't think it's always the deck for everybody depending on where they're at, but it's so powerful. And again, it's just, for me, it's irreplaceable. I don't think we have any other decks out there like this, and so I had to have that one there. Okay, so that's like what I would say, like modern Oracle, large deck cards. You don't pull a ton of them. Weaver's Oracle would be high up there for me. There's so many of them. I tried to just kind of get a mix, but anyways, that's that. I'm not going to stay here real long because I'll talk about it in most used, because this is definitely a most used deck of mine. But this deck, in terms of a favorite hybrid, and this is based on the tarot system, but it's not the exact tarot system, and I don't read it that way. So it has 5 minors, the 4 elements, and then, which only are 1 through 10. There's no quartz in there. And then the 5th element of being, which are where all of those people, court energy, are. And then it has a major arcana. But this is based on past life work, which is a big part of my practice. I have used this deck so much, and I love this deck so much, it feels like it's my deck. So, you know, I would put this in the category, like if I, you know, got rid of all of the other decks except for the decks that I've created, I would also keep this. Not because I had anything to do with the creation of this deck, because I did not. But I have used it so much, and I love it so much that it feels like it's the deck I would have made if I'd had the artistic skill that James Eads has, which I do not. So it's just amazing. And so it is one of my most used hybrid systemed oracles. And B, it is so home to me that it feels like I made it. So that, I hope, says how much I love it. I definitely would have to say the Shaman's Oracle, because this is system. This has suits in it, and for me, this is my irreplaceable ancestor deck. I have used this so much in ancestor work that it's nothing to do for me about shamans or anything else. Like, these are cards from the ancestors. An ancestor, whether mine or somebody else's, steps into the energy of the card to have something to say. And it's, to me, just so powerful in that aspect. And much of that is because of, I don't know how the last time I obviously did not put these back well. I have to say that John Matthews' message from the cards, I think, are channeled from the ancestors. And so that is a great part of why this deck has become so powerful for me. But it is so, for me, this is so imbued with the energy of the ancestors and the different ways that ancestral energy can step forward in, that I can't even separate this into. I would never use this deck for anything that didn't involve, like, I wouldn't use this and say, okay, I'm not talking about the ancestors here, I'm just using this deck as it is. No, I couldn't even do it. These, to me, so much embody the energy of the ancestors now that it's just the ancestors deck. I can't use it for anything else. I wouldn't use this for a random other, I would use it for other readings, but it would be the ancestral voice. It's just, that's what this deck is to me. So, definitely high up on equal footing, truthfully, with that. I would not want to be without that deck. And then just to try to get more of a standard hybrid deck in, I do have James Eads' Open Portals. This is a hybrid playing card and oracle deck, and it's all about portals. I would like to use this more than I do, and get really comfortable with it. I mean, I have used it quite a bit, generally with past life things. Again, the whole portal concept is really tied to, or mirrors, but portal energy is tied to my concepts in past life work. But there is something really special here that I haven't fully engaged yet, but love. And so, again, this is a hybrid. It is a playing card deck, but the cards are, it's a separate game. I've never played, I think I maybe played it once with my daughter, but it to me is like a functioning oracle deck as well. So definitely a hybrid. Another just example of what I would call a hybrid, which would be anything I would consider an oracle. An oracle hybrid would be anything I consider an oracle, but it has either it's a hybrid of something existing, or it's a hybrid, or it's a system. Somebody has really gone in and made a system within an oracle that you can't just pick up one thing and just, pick up a card and get a theme. It's got a system that you do need to stop and learn, that's there. So that's my other choice there. Okay, so these are my favorites. Look, it's the best I could do. I have all kinds of favorites for all kinds of reasons. And again, even 6 months from now, I could probably, come up with a whole nother set. Some would stay the same, but yeah. There we go. That's that part. Now, I do want to show you my most used. Okay, so now these are my most used in these categories, and this is much easier for me. Again, I do use runes. I do use all the other things as well, but no question, my most used casting is charms. That sounds weird. My most used casting method is charms, and so yeah, this is, oh no, I felt that drop. I'm gonna have to pause and find that, or it will never come back again. It must have fallen back there, and I don't even know what it is, but something fell. Again, I do have a system to mine, so it's not, but it's still casting. And so I have two sets. One here that's the fairy tale, and I have another one at the cabin that is my base set, but they all have the 4 key, all the system parts are there. There's just different charms. So like there's the knife there of the nice fork and spoon. There's 3 of the keys. So yeah, no question. I love this set. I love charm casting in general, and certainly it is the most used casting, most on the table. I would also have to say, hands down, most used. I rotate through playing cards a lot, but I don't think this has gotten put away since I got it, and I've had it for a while now. And this is the Eye of the Ocean by Stockholm 17. I like a lot of their stuff, but I think why is that it is a nice tone for a lot of the decks that I use. It is decorative, right? So visually pleasing with the mapping, but it's kind of neutral, so the theme of it doesn't really get in the way. It also feels like a lot of the mapping lines feel like web work, where we are really looking at energetic webs and we're mapping out energetic patterns. So it feels very relevant. Oh my goodness, I cannot speak. It feels very relevant, but again, it doesn't visually get in the way at all. The back is stunning. The box is stunning, so it's just pleasurable to take out and open. So hands down, again, I go through a lot of different playing card decks, and I just kind of swap them out, the mood and things. I got a good solid handful that I use for divination, but in terms of, this is my most used, certainly in the last, since I've had it. I use this out a lot. I just don't put it away, and I love it. Okay, so that is playing cards. Let's see what Belle is gruffing about. Okay, so again, this category is not just Lenormand. It's Lenormand, it's Kipper, and I have favorite Kippers. There's not as many Kippers as there are, but I do have favorite Kippers. I have favorite fortune-telling style decks. I'm going to have to do that in another video because I just don't want to go hunting again. So my most used Lenormand deck, bar none, minus my own Lenormand deck, which is probably higher than this, but they're actually probably pretty close, is the 1889. And I'm sorry because this is not available. Again, the first version of this, which was the Game of Hope, was my second, only to the original Lenormand deck. And this is an update of that. And it makes me very stressed that it's not available, because this is actually not, it's beautiful. Hands down beautiful, but it is not ideal card stock for small decks, right? You really do need a good playing card stock for tiny decks, even for playing card decks, so that you can riffle well. This is not, and I have the regular version of this. I think I have 2 copies or 1 copy, but anyways, one of my copies has been so well used and actually has bent because I riffle shuffle, and it's not good card stock for that in this size. If it was a tarot deck, it would be fine, but so it makes me worried because I do love this so much, and I know you can't get this anymore. But the Game of Hope was gone for a long time, and then they came back and did this one, so I have hopes that, you know, someday they'll come back, and maybe they'll be available again. But the backing is stunning. Again, the front is stunning, and it's just home because I've used it so much. So yeah, again, other than my own, hands down most used Lenormand deck. And truthfully, just in general, fortune telling. If I stuck with a category of most used fortune telling style deck that's not my own, it would still be this, because I don't do Kipper as much. Lenormand is much more popular in my professional practice than any other fortune telling style deck. So this would still actually be accurate to the most on the table. Tarot deck's actually fairly easy for me. The lovely Lynn Arrero, who does her own decks and things, but also I think works with U.S. Games, sent me, I don't know when, I don't think there's a date on this sweet card, but this fall, I would say, sent me a couple US game decks, and this was one of them. And it's a pocket size edition of the mass market edition of the Crow Tarot. I love this so much. Because I do, very few straight tarot readings. I really, and that's funny because when I first went professional, it was mostly over half Lenormand, and then the rest would have been my general tarot reading. And then when I added the 3 voices, it would have been the 3. So I was mostly like a grand tableau, my general tarot reading, and 3 voices readings. Those would be the main things. Well, now people still get my general tarot reading, and so that still is purchased, but by far most of my readings outside of Lenormand are past life readings, ancestor readings, Port in the Storm, which are mixes of mostly oracle with a secondary of tarot. So having a smaller version of this when it's going to be in with other decks is so fantastic. And because I've just come out of, and I'm not done, I still have people who have added in, later on their year ahead readings, but I've come out of the season of year aheads, and I use this not all because sometimes people have deck requests, or I just know a client so much so I want to use a particular deck with them. But for the most part, I have used the Crow Tarot this year because it's so small and it fits the table with the 12 cards so nicely. So this has been fantastic. I adore it, and it's just cute. Like, the book is cute. I love mini things, but this is actually a really usable mini thing. But I think because I do a lot of, like I said, ancestor readings with very earthy palettes. I use this a lot, which obviously is my most used. The palettes, the color palettes, just go really well with other decks. And while this deck is a Rider-Waite-Smith based deck, for me, it functions like a pip deck. I really don't pay any attention, to be honest. And I love her artwork. I love all of her decks. But, well, I can't say that. I don't have all her decks. I don't have, like, the straight one animals except for the crow one. But I love her work. But I really don't pay attention or reference the images in the readings. It's like a straight up crow pip deck for me, and it meshes with a lot of the main cards. So if I'm doing the Weaver's Oracle and I pull I always pull like a what to hold on to, what to let go to, and what to let go of, and what to lean into. I use this. It goes with the Weavers. It goes with this, which is forward. Ancestors, I don't use tarot a lot in my straight ancestor reading, but if I did, it would match the Shaman's Oracle tone. So it's just like a pip deck that people are happy to have because it is visually pleasing, but the art doesn't get in the way at all. And so it's just like my main pip deck. And even though it's not a pip deck, that's how it is for me. And the color tone just goes with a lot of the decks that I do readings with. And so hands down, the most used, the most tarot deck most goes on my table is the Crow Tarot. And the mini one, I just love it. I mean, look, here's the mini. I do use the mini Prisma Visions as well, but I don't have a ton of mini decks, but I'm getting more and more of them. Anyways, that is most used tarot deck, 100%. I cheated a little bit here because this is my most used, so, but this has got to have an honorable mention, so I did cheat slightly, but, there's no questions for the same reasons, because I use this a lot in my ancestor readings. I use this a lot as a qualifying card, like it goes under a main card, and the main card is the main card, and this just gives nuance to whatever I'm doing. And visually, like coloration, it matches my decks that I do ancestor readings with past life readings would, like, whatever. It's just, and because it is about earth energy, it, for the most part, you know, there are some people cards, but for the most part, it's very neutral in the sense that even if it has, you know, an explosion or something like that, eruption, it's not evil, right? An eruption is not evil, or a deluge is not evil. It's just a natural phenomenon, and we just have to work with the energy that is there. And that's why I find this deck to be so good, because it tends to be based on natural energies that are present all the time. It's just, okay, how are we going to work with this? That it just reads really well for the types of readings that I use. So no question, in terms of an oracle, a single, you know, a straight up oracle deck on the table, the most for me, it would be the Illuminated Earth Oracle. But I have to give, this is called the Spirit Cards Oracle by John Arthur Mosley. And I have to say this because I have, you know, stuff over here that holds decks that I access all the time, and it's got, you know, I've got another one over here that holds all my, like, tombos and little things that I grab a lot when I, like, my glasses cleaner, you know, it's like one of those micro, but it's a park map from a park we went to, but it holds things that I grab all the time. This is just tucked in there, and I have never put it back in its box since I got it. I most of the time don't even know what it's called, because I never see it in its box, because it's always out. I have trimmed it, but for me, this is, I just am doing a reading. Sometimes it's part of the reading, but a lot of times it's just like, I feel like we're leaving this reading and I want to see what kind of energy is walking beside you as you walk away from this reading. It could be an animal guardian, it could be an ancestor, it could be a guide. Even if an animal comes up, that might be an animal. I might feel like, hey, it feels like you've got an ancestor around you, or even it feels like an animal is around you. And even if I don't get an animal, it's like, this is the energy that is surrounding you and supporting you, and it feels like an animal guardian, and it really comes with this energy to help you to surrender, to help you to accept the situation that you're in, blah, 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 right? So I generally have the feeling this is an ancestor, this is an animal, or there's something walking along beside you, and this is that support beside you. And that is 99.9% of the time, that's how this is used. I've done a reading, and I pulled this card to just see, as you're walking away from this reading, this energy is walking beside you. And it's never gone away. Like, it's never been put away. So, is that a bent? I thought, yeah, see, I ran over it with my wheel. So sad. It's not, it doesn't affect the shuffling, but look at it. It makes me sad. But again, it just shows it's just been used up the wazoo. And so I have to, this one has to show up, even though this is on the table more in terms of like that pull one card, type of larger things. This is 100% on the table the most. So I do kind of think of them differently, but there you go. And then I've already talked about this, but this is the Cosmovisions. In terms of a hybrid deck, this is a mashup of tarot and an oracle deck. This is 1,000% the most on the table. I use it in past life readings. I use it in my multi-dimensional check-in. This idea of really looking at pattern. I do use reversals with it, of seeing, just pulling 3 or 4 cards to see a overall pattern that is a deeper pattern that is impacting the current situation, has become really and almost is where it's going to start getting added into anything that I do, because I think it's so useful to understand that there are always bigger patterns at play, even within the smaller things that are happening, and that if we're reading the energy of a situation, let's go a little deeper and see where that bigger pattern may also be influencing things. Because if you just look at the surface, you might still not get a full understanding of, like, why am I reacting this way, or what is going on here? There's something else amplifying this, and then looking to see what that pattern is. And there's, to me, no more perfect deck than this to do that. As I said, this feels like my deck, even though, again, I give all credit to the amazing James Eads, but it does feel like it's just as my deck, and I would not, 1,000% would not want to be without this. And then again, in fact, if I did, and you know, I'm going to show mine next, like if I did say, you know what, I'm not using any other decks but my decks from here on out, I would keep this one. This would probably be the only one that I would be like, I literally don't think I can live without this. I mean, I could. All the things that I do with this, I could do with one of my own decks. But again, this feels so much like my own deck. So I would probably keep that and say, you know what, this gets a pass. Like, I'm going to have a joint custody with James Eads, and he does not he does not know me or anything like that. I mean, he knows who I am. He sends me decks or reviews, but he, you know, it's not like he's a friend or anything. But I do feel like I'm in joint custody with this deck, so I would pull it into my, okay, I'm only using my decks. Okay, I'm done. I'm done. But that's how much this is on the table and how much I love that deck. So, okay, so those are the most on the table of those categories. One more, and we won't stay here long, because I did exclude my decks, which are favorites of my decks. I did think it interesting that I think a number of mine, you know, are kind of fit in the hybrid category. You know, this is a tarot deck, but it is also definitely a hybrid of playing cards, fortune telling, and obviously tarot, the added suit of tarot. So that certainly could go into the hybrid category, but I'm going to put it in tarot. It is a full functioning tarot deck. Obviously, I have my casting of my things. I'll talk about that in a minute. I do obviously have my Lenormand deck, but with it stepping out of the actual symbols, you could, I guess, argue that it was moves towards Oracle, but it's I use it straight up as a Lenormand deck. So that's that. And I'll go through these. I'm just kind of trying to see how would I organize those. So that's tarot. In terms of a straight up Oracle deck, 100% Oracle place is, you know, it's small. It's also interesting to me that all of my decks are small. Now, this is this is a, I just got this in this test size. Obviously, I use a lot of playing card size, and so I really wanted a version of my Journey Oracle, and I actually really love it in this. I do plan on making that available. This is arguably is arguably a mashup between a symbol casting system with Oracle images. That's really what that is. So that could certainly go into the hybrid. What am I missing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, that's right. Right. We have our casting. We have our symbol base like Lenormand. We have tarot. We have like a standard Oracle. And then we have hybrid, which you could really call both of these hybrids. And truthfully, you could call this a hybrid. This is my Anglo-Saxon deck that matches my Oracle of Place. But this is a casting system that has been blended to an oracle. So that's, I guess, would also call a hybrid. And again, this could, here, we'll stick another version over here and say, okay, that's also a hybrid. This is, again, just these are all, there's one way or another that you can get a hold of all of these. This is a personal, but this is definitely Oracle, 100% Oracle, just blending some AI tech with that. So that's certainly an Oracle. But I do cover all the categories. This is my journey tokens. I started out to make an Oracle deck, but I just ended up making a casting system. The system itself was of the more interest to me than anything. And so I'm like, I don't really have the artistic skills to contribute, even though I like what I had painted at the time, which I think was some of the seasonal cards I had painted, and I liked what I had painted, but I still had a little bit of that imposter syndrome, like I don't really have anything to offer in that. But so it ended up taking a direction into casting, which I love. And while I use them both, no, that's not true. I actually use it in card format far more, because not a lot of people like do casting readings. And in the grand scheme of readings, casting is quite low. So I definitely use this format more. I love the casting format of my journey tokens a lot. So, but then it shifted later on once I was able to, let me grab this, but still small. And this isn't even the mini, but still small size. So I apparently like small size decks. Started to complete the images, and I actually really love again, it's very similar, just it's obviously different in its own right. It has some more specific images and stuff in it, but it's similar. I love the coloration of both of these decks. It really speaks to my love of color and the tones and things of color that I love. But so then eventually I put it out as a deck that has the symbol sort of centered, literally, but then has the corresponding coloration and imagery to support that. So then that really turns it into a hybrid of that. And again, I use a lot of my decks in conjunction with each other, especially with my multi-dimensional reading. And I was using the symbol or my journey oracle a lot in the Three Cauldrons aspect of that reading. And so I really wanted because it's a lot of cards and decks on the table, so I wanted a smaller version to be able to fit better, and I actually fell quite in love with the poker size version. It does quite justice to it. My friend Patrick and I had ordered a tarot sized one, which I like and I've used, but this is like perfection to me. So anyways, that is just I had ordered that for myself to use. But that's definitely a hybriding of, the coloration and energy of the visual imagery of Oracle combined with very symbolic based casting system. So I would definitely have to put that over there. I don't know how I'm jumping. Oh, because I started here, it turned into this. This was actually my very first deck, which is the Story in Color Lenormand. I still love this deck. It is still along with the 1889. It's my most used. I really, especially when I first put this out, there weren't a lot of decks that had like a querent and significant versus gendered significator cards, and so I really love that aspect. Now you can get a lot more. I'm not saying I started that, but there weren't a lot, so I definitely use this almost exclusively because I really don't feel like I need to know the gender of the person, nor do I need to know the gender of who's significant or what is significant to them, and so I use it a lot because of that. But I just love this deck. Again, still use it all the time. Still makes me really happy to pick up, which is good to say about your own deck, right? Let's be honest. That's good to say. Nellie's is my newest deck. This is definitely a mashup, but it is a full tarot. It's 78 cards. It has the 4 minors. It has the major. It's more of a reflection on the history of cartomancy that says, hey, playing cards, the grandmother of all this, and the tarot deck is just a majors, right? A suit of majors added to a playing card deck. So that's what this is. It's a playing card deck with the suit of majors added to it that brings in the tarot, with the Lenormand. It has a 36 card Lenormand, but then it fills out the 56 minors for a full fortune telling style deck. So this is literally obviously my favorite deck. This is the deck. The purpose of this is that, you know, people always like, if you could only have one deck, like what would it be? And because I have a love of cartomancy, one deck would have been really hard. But so this premise of this deck is, you know, if you had only one deck, what would it be? And it would be Nellie's, because with this, I can do straight up cartomancy readings. I don't even take the majors out. I just read cartomancy. You can do straight up tarot reading. You can do full symbolic reading. It just has everything that I need in it in one deck. So it's my perfect deck. Again, I made it for me. It's not everybody's perfect deck, but it's my perfect deck, and it's bridge size. So that would be my tarot. Obviously, as I said, this is one of my favorite oracle decks of all time. This is not my artwork. This is free, you know, in the common domain imagery that I changed the coloration. Like I used some filters to kind of even it out so that they at least had a similar tone to them. But this is not my artwork. This is a white card with a keyword on it. But this is my understanding of the world energetically in a deck, right? This is my ancestral work. This is past life work. This is self-development work. This is the way that the dimensions work. Really everything how I see the cauldrons are in here. The ancestors are in here. The understanding of place energetically and physically are here. This just is the way that I see the world energetically functioning in a deck. So obviously it's literally meant for the way that I see the world. And so this is literally one of my favorite decks ever, and it's nothing fancy. It's nothing fancy visually, but I mean, I love the visuals now. I've always, you know, it was in the back of my head, you know, someday if I had the skills, you know, I could go back and paint this deck, you know, so it had my artwork on it. But I don't know. I mean, I still might. Who knows if the mood strikes? But, you know, I have fallen in love with, you know, the images that are there are very tied to each one of the cards for me. I use this deck all the time. And so I don't even know if I would do that anymore. It would still be fun if I had the skills to do it justice. But I don't know if I would, because it really does just speak to the images themselves have become, you know, part of the deck for me. So that's Oracle of Place, literally one of my all-time favorite. And you know, my friend Patrick and I have talked about this. Now it would be hard. So before Nellie's, I would have said if I could keep only one of my decks, it would be the Oracle of Place, because I use it so much, and it's so much a synthesis of everything that I have learned in my life leading up to this time, right, of how I see, the way I see things. So it's such a synthesis of all those things that it feels like it's like the culmination of my spiritual path. Now, I'm not dead. I'm sure I'm going to obviously continue to grow and evolve and things. But as of the moment, like, this is so much who I am. And so if I had to pick one of the decks prior to Nellie's, it was hands down would have been Oracle of Place, which is so funny, right? Because it's not even, there's nothing fancy about this, but it does what it needs to do really well. It would be harder now, right? So now it would be harder, but truthfully, in the end of the day, if I was to take Nellie's deck and Oracle of Place and throw out all, or not throw out, give away all my other decks, right? Everything that I need to do in a reading would be accomplished in these two decks. This fits that, sort of modern oracle, whereas this really obviously fits those cartomancy tie-ins. And so between these two decks, right, this is everything about the way I see cartomancy. This is everything that I see about to do with how I see the energetic working, past lives working, ancestors working, animal guardianship working, dimensions working, right? Everything that I, in a energetic, spiritual context, see the world is in here. So I would say these two decks, and I know there's people who have both of these decks, but these two decks, like, you're really holding everything that I see about cartomancy and spirituality working in these two decks. So I could literally take these two decks, and really, I would have to obviously modify some of my readings, but not by much. Like, I would really be able to do, unless it was just something that was so specific to I do have readings that are very specific to a deck, but I wouldn't have to do much. Like, I could accomplish the same, whatever's behind the intent of a reading that I had, I could accomplish with these two decks. And so I would not want to pick between these two because they serve different functions. But I can say, if I could only have two decks, these are the two decks that I would have, and they would do everything that I needed them to do. And that's pretty cool, right? As somebody who loves divination, and somebody who uses divination daily, that's pretty awesome. That's an awesome feeling. Even if it was just me and nobody else had these decks, that would be an amazing thing. So those make my soul happy. Again, love this. Like, I wouldn't want to be without this. I wouldn't want to be that without this. But it's these two decks are interesting to me at this place that I am in my practice spiritually, at this place that I'm at in my practice in terms of divination. It is interesting to me that these two decks really do, as a unit, just hit all those important places, and it's kind of a cool place to be in and to look at. This is a deck, I have a whole video on this. This is made with AI art. It is not a deck that has anything to do about the ethics behind it. I would not sell this deck. Even though, legally I can. I used a program that, I can legally sell the images, but I would not. Like, that somebody's artwork is all mixed up in all of this. But for myself, it wasn't really about the actual artwork. What my question was, is as somebody like myself who is very interested in the liminal spaces, Fae is liminal space, that space between is so important to so many understandings and concepts, and that in a modern world, the internet, right, is this vast liminal space that has had dumped into it all of humanity's hopes and fears and a lot of other stuff in between, right? Our biggest flaws and our greatest accomplishments and, again, our biggest fears and our biggest hopes, it's all been dumped into this miasma of space. And if like me, you believe in Fae energy, things have, you know, I'm sure entered into that liminal space and or have arisen out of that liminal space energetically. So my experiment was that if I went to an AI art generator and asked it, inputted the least amount that I possibly could of descriptors, right? Because the whole purpose of AI art is that you can go there and say, okay, I would like to see a woman with dark hair and blue eyes and angel wings and a warrior outfit and a sword, you know, leaping off of a hill. I don't know. I know nothing about these things really, but, you know, and then you'd be able to generate an image, right, based off of all the descriptors that you put in. But what I wanted to do is I was using that as a tool to say, show me. So I used that as my main keyword, is show me, you know, the Watcher of Dreams. Show me the Watcher of Joy. Now, I didn't start there. I started, I don't even know. Again, I have a whole video of this. I'll try to remember to link it below. It ended up, I like to make systems. Look, this is how I am. It's how my brain works. I enjoy that aspect. So it started like getting into suits. Like there are Watchers, there are the realms, there are Fae energies, there are other, you know, other things that are going on here. So it started to, there are keepers, there are Watchers, there are keepers, there are Faes, there are collectors, there are things like the liminal, the web, the well, things like that. But so it started to, as I was going and really tapping into this, it was an amazing experience of feeling like, okay, I've hit the mother lode in terms of I'm really hitting something. I'm tapped into something. You know, again, everybody, what they might tapped into, you know, may not be something they want to get tapped into. I was very careful, obviously, about that energy. I think there are entities too. Anyways, it started to turn into a system, so then it was like, okay, well then who's the Watcher of this? Who's the Watch? Show me this, show me that, right? But it didn't start out that way. So I can't remember off the top of my head, like, okay, what was the first, but then it just started to roll and turn into its own. I love this deck. Again, this is a personal deck. The Bridge of Past Lives, like, so it would be basically like, show me the Ghost in the Machine. You know, show me the Bridge of Past Lives or whatever. But I tried to put as few descriptors as I could because I didn't really want it to give me what I was describing. The thing was to approach it with the understanding that there's energy there. Now show me who you are. Show me what's in this liminal space. That was the whole point. And it was just amazing. It was an amazing experience. So, again, as I didn't start out to make a deck. I just started out because I wanted to see what was in this liminal space. But then as it kind of rolled along, it did, and it was all in one night. It was just like bam, 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 bam. And it rolled into, you know, show me the Angel of Light. Like, that was really awesome. Oh, the entities are the elements. Show me the Watcher within. That was really cool. But it turned into, because this is how my brain works, right? It really did turn into a deck. And so I did pop them onto some, you know, just plain old, you know, again, obviously I love poker-sized cards, just with the titles on it. I love this deck. I got very good energy. Again, I do think we have to be careful when we enter face spaces. And this to me is very much a Fae, it's a Fae. Look at the Collector of Fears. He's kind of creepy, but I do love it. You know, when you're entering into these kinds of liminal spaces, I do a lot of journey work, and that is done with, show me my friend in the Matrix. Like, how cool was that? You know, I do think that how you approach it can affect can affect the answers and the things that you get back. And so you do have to approach these things mindfully and with a strong sense of what you are looking for, right? And a strong sense of the wheel of the like, show me the wheel of the ancestors. That was just amazing. The gods and the goddesses, the old god, because I do think like the old gods, the old energies, they find ways to exist. They find ways to exist. Obviously, I haven't, done that. I've just been chit-chatting while doing this, and I haven't totally, but as you can see, it ended up being, a deck that has suits to, here's the end. I was like, where's the other entity? So then I ended up getting, a copy of the deck to use, and I love this deck. Like, it is very Fae, and what I see Fae, which is liminal space, primal energies, existing in that space. So in some ways, it's my most, of all, because there's not a lot of good Fae decks out there that I think are truly connecting to Fae. Brian Froud's decks, you feel like you have stepped into that. The Hush Tarot, you've stepped into that space. Like, there are very few decks where I feel like really capture what primal Fae energy is. This deck, it definitely does in this sort of modern liminal space. And it reads amazing. And again, I'm not discussing all this because I'm trying to sell this deck. This is not a deck that's for sale. But it's very powerful in that, right? And it was an extremely powerful experience, and it was a very positive experience, even though there were, the collector of loneliness and the collector of fears and lost ideas and things. So it wasn't like this was all easy energies that came out of this, but I certainly felt like I was connected to energy that was interested, right? That was meeting me where I was entering in at, and was, this is what was willing to kind of step forward and meet me where I was energetically, which I think is so important when doing something like this. But anyways, I'll put the link below. I don't know why I babbled so much about it, but this is just, to me, such a fascinating project. And then since then, I have used this for readings, obviously just for myself. There are clients I would read for with this, people that I just know, any person that I would work with Fae energy with. If I'm willing to work with Fae energy, I would be willing to use this deck because that's what it feels like. But there's very few people that I meet in that particular space either. But I just have found this to be really a powerful reader, and a little tiny thing with, just not even what I would say curated AI art, because I didn't go through what people are doing and creating, getting really specific descriptors in order to get specific art style out of it. That wasn't my point. My point was to just say, show me this. You show me the Fae of energy. That actually just kind of popped out on its own. Or look at that. I mean, look at that. The Fae of sadness. That was that hits my heart even more, because I can imagine my granddaughter looking like this. But that idea of sadness, of childhood lost, or sadness of illusions being shattered, and that was really poignant. It was a very poignant, that's a good word, Kelly. It was a very poignant experience. There were slightly creepy things, but nothing that was negative. I didn't feel negative about any of the experience. It was poignant, and it was curious, full of curiosity on both sides. So very interesting experience. Sorry, I don't know why. My intention was not to talk about that a lot, but I've been using this a lot for myself. So it has, I've just been able to finally really talk about like how I didn't intend to make a deck, but I did. And in terms of reading with it, it's been a very powerful experience to read with it. So that's that. Oracle, so that definitely be in the Oracle category. And then again, I do think that's a bit of a hybrid. That's a hybrid into Oracle deck style with, I suppose, runes. I use this deck all the time. I do have certain powers, specific powers associated to each rune. There are multifaceted powers on each rune, but this is just sort of one of the ways that I work with runes. So I love having that there. Again, this is just, you know, a simple deck. You could make your own deck like this. And I have a class actually, I think it's working with oracles that, you know, walks through how to make a simple deck. It's putting a symbol on, it's finding an image, it's putting your, you know, your keywords or your thing on the bottom of it. Like I encourage people to make things. They don't have to be super fancy, and it doesn't mean it's less powerful. I use this deck all of the time. There's not very many Anglo-Saxon rune decks. I only ever know of James Eade's decks that's full Anglo-Saxon. So I use this all of the time for myself and clients, and it's not, that's super simple to make for yourself. But anyways, so I would call that a bit of a hybrid. And truthfully, Nellie's deck is a hybrid as well. So pulling these things out when I was thinking about this, of course, these decks are always out. I'm using these decks constantly. And so, but it was kind of funny to pull them all out together because it was like, oh, I like poker, bridge. I like playing card sized decks. Because again, even when this was in its original form, this is, you know, shorter than a poker card. Obviously it's wider because it's a hexagon. But still, it's a small deck in comparison to, you know, most Oracle decks. So, so clearly I learned about myself that I like small size decks, and I like apparently hybridy kind of decks, and I don't know, it's just interesting to see them there. And I love all of these decks for different reasons, and I use them all. So it's not, you wonder, right? Like I wondered, because this was kind of an experiment. This was an experiment to say, hey, if I step back behind those symbols, what's there, right? Energetically, what's there. It was an amazing experience for me, you know, deepening my connection to Lenormand. But I did wonder, like, okay, this is cool, this is beautiful, but all these years later, like, am I still going to be interested in using this deck, or is it just like kind of a fun thing to do? But it's still, you know, the deck that I go to a lot. I still use the Journey Oracle all the time. I still used this, got added and expanded, and I use this constantly. I use this constantly now. This is my newest, but I've had a copy of this with just titles for years, and I've used this. I think that once you figure out, you know, what it is that interests you, and you know, are able to either find a deck that is like that, or you create a deck that is that space for you, it just becomes home. And so I like that my home, divinatory wise, that I've created for myself includes all of those areas of interest. And it's been a wild ride. Here we go. This is much longer than intended. I love divination. I love thinking about divination. I like thinking about the different voices that the different styles of divination bring in. And it's been quite a wonderful, for somebody like me who loves all things divination, to be able to land on home, right, with my own things, has been quite a privilege and a joy. I'm curious to see what comes next. I have no clue. So don't be like, oh, is there something in the offing? No, I have no clue. I am still riding the Nelly high. I am still, there's nothing on the table at the moment, or in the works at the moment, but I'm sure there will be. Oops, that was me. I'm sure there will be. I'm sure there'll be something else that I think, what if I do this? What would that look like? I wouldn't mind doing a photography. You know, my first love was photography. And I did a lot of, an image a day, an image a day, like a macro image a day for a year. I did like really tight in macro, like let's look at something, but let's pick it up. This is before I was doing, I was doing divination privately, but this was before I, was anything involved in the divinatory world. I was like, let me pick this object up and look at it zoomed in and from a different perspective, right? And I did, picture of those for every single day for a year. Different things like that. Like, I love photography, and obviously I pull from photographic things for a lot of these. So I wouldn't be opposed to, or I would be curious or interested. I just have to wait and see what comes up to pique that interest. But I wouldn't mind doing like a photograph style deck, simply because that is an art form that I really love. It was certainly my first love artistically, would have been words, and second would have been photography before I ever even tried to pick up any kind of paint or anything like that. So that'd be interesting, but I have I'm just babbling at this point, so I'm going to let you go. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of whatever day or night or week or whatever it is that's going on in time frame in your world. And thanks for taking a look at these things. Maybe pop down if you want in the comments, like casting, symbol-based, tarot, modern oracle, and maybe a hybrid category. That could be, you don't have to go there if you don't like hybrids, but a hybrid, if you were, try to narrow it down for the moment of the comment, what would that favorite be for you, or of most used? Because I think those often can be two different things, and so either or both. I would love to see what they are for you.